Hello, welcome to another episode of Don't Panic Geocacher. My name is Arjen and I go by WaterFan5 on the geocaching.com website. And today I'm going to talk about mystery caches and a specific mystery type of mystery caches where another geocache is used to hide the information to give you the solution to the puzzle. So you're trying to solve one mystery cache and it refers you to either by title, code, or name to another geocache. And I'm going to talk about how you can solve those. So here's an example of what may happen, right? So you look at the cache description and it contains a GC code or an ID or a title that brings you to another geocache, basically a reference to another geocache. So you might be solving GC12345 and suddenly you'll find another GC code. It could be in plain sight, just in the cache description, but it may also be something that is hidden or the outcome of an initial puzzle, and so it's a step of a puzzle. So for example, it could be hidden inside the HTML code. So if you see that, there's a couple of things that you need to do. As I mentioned, it's another geocache, right? So you need to visit that page. But before you do that, it's always good to check for any mystery cache to see, okay, do I find only one? Do I find multiple? As I mentioned, it could be hidden just in the text description, but it could be any outcome of the puzzle, just like a coordinate is an outcome of a puzzle. It could be that the GC code is the outcome of the puzzle. So basically, any puzzle technique that I have talked about in any of the other videos, they all apply here. So of course, if you get a reference to another geocache, you go visit that cache, right? So you go and take a look at it. And there's a couple of things that you need to pay attention to. And if there is multiple GC codes involved, multiple references to other caches, you may want to start like a little document and keep notes. But you want to see, are they by the same cache owner? Typically, it's better if the other geocache is by the same cache owner because the cache owner will have more control over that page. But it could be that it is by a different cache owner. It does happen. What is the status? Is it an active or an archived one? Because based on that, we may want to verify different things. And how many references did we find? Did we find one GC code? Did we find two GC codes? Were there 10 titles listed of other caches? Or were there 100 titles listed? All of that may differ your approach of how you want to solve this puzzle. So what I will do is I will go over some different techniques. So first, what if you find only one reference, like one title or one GC code? Well, if it's by the same cache owner, and it doesn't really matter if it's an active or an inactive one, you just go dig around on that page. Often the other page, the cache that you might refer to might be traditional, no longer a puzzle. So who's going to look for white text or HTML or something extra in that page? Might be something in the gallery of that one. So any other video where I talk about cache techniques all apply here, but now you have to search on the other page, the page that you were referred to. Similar, the cache owner, the CO, may have left comments on that, may have left maintenance logs. Anything that the CO placed on that cache might now be relevant with that information because they may have done that simply afterwards, right? And especially if the cache is inactive, then it might be the archive node that actually contains the information that you need to solve the original puzzle. That is if the other cache is by the same cache owner. If it's by a different CO, maybe it's a friend and maybe they put something on the page. Certainly possible, but it might very well just be that they just put the information just in their found log or in their comment log and they put a little note in there, a little code, or something that you need to solve your puzzle. Anything else that they put in there could be potentially risky because the original CO of that referenced cache may change something and so potentially break their mystery cache. So the safest one is to use the find in the comments, but it's certainly not unheard of that it is other things are used. Now another popular technique is to verify whether it is an archived cache and whether it's an archived cache that is in the 2-mile radius of the posted coordinates. So your cache might be the one that you're trying to solve is in a certain coordinates. The reference cache might be within the same 2 miles. Why is that relevant? Well, especially if it's the same CEO, they may have fallen in love with a certain cache location and wanted to hide a new cache there. Maybe originally it was a traditional, now they make it a puzzle and they simply reuse their coordinate. And by referencing the original cache that was there, they have now told you this is where it is. And so it's always good if the reference cache is within a 2 mile radius to try and see if that coordinate was used, simply because the location was reused. This is of course only possible if the cache is archived. If the cache is still active, they can't place it there. Also important to verify is to see whether it is an active, maybe traditional cache, because we might be talking here about a so-called bonus or field puzzle. It might be that you physically have to visit the referenced cache and get information from there that you need to use for this puzzle. So look for attributes on your cache page that you're trying to solve and see if it says that it is a bonus cache or a field puzzle, because it might be that you have to physically visit the other one. And hopefully there's some kind of indication whether you need to or not, right? It would be tough to guess, but it certainly has happened. Now, what if you find 2 or 3 references? Now, all the same things could still apply, meaning that maybe one gives the latitude and the other one gives the longitude, or one gives the degrees, the other one gives the minutes, and it might even be 4 caches and they all give pieces of the coordinates that you're looking for, right? But it could also be that there are reference points on the map. At the end, a geocache just points to a coordinate. And if I have 2 coordinates, I can calculate a halfway point. If I have 3 coordinates, I can make it into a triangle and I can calculate the center of the triangle. So I have a video that talks about maps and projections, and I talk about halfway points and things like that. But certainly this is a way to calculate that. So for example, in this picture, the left and the right one might be actual geocaches, and the cache owner found out that the halfway point between those two actually makes a good location for a new geocache, and used that as a calculation. So just something to take into account when you find like 2 or 3 references to other caches. A very popular way is to give you like between 10 and 15. 10 would be a partial location, the degrees would be given. 15 or 14 would be a full coordinate, right? So first of all, still the same thing might apply with 1 or 2. It might be that it's a needle in a haystack approach and you have to find all the pieces in those 14 and hopefully one of them is the correct one, and it becomes busy work. But it could also be that each one gives you exactly 1 digit. So for example, if it's 15, they all give you 1 digit. And so for example, the title might have a number in it, like North 3 or 3 biggies or 5 something. And so basically the cache owner found titles, hopefully of their own caches, but potentially of other caches, and hoping that the other CO doesn't change the title. It could also be number of attributes. A digit in the coordinate. Use the first one of the first, the second one of the second, the third one of the third, the fourth one of the fourth, and so on till we have done all 15, right? Could be the month of published, anything else, right? The number of words in the cache title. It could be anything really. So, but if you find between 10 and 15, this is something to look for, right? To see if every cache represents a number in your coordinates. The other thing to take into account is that you shouldn't assume that the order that you were given these references, these GC codes or these titles, is the order of the coordinate. It might be that you have to reorder them, either alphabetically or, for example, by publish date, and that the oldest one is the first coordinate, first digit, the second oldest is the second digit, and so on. So that is if you see like 10 to 15, you can kind of guess that maybe everyone will give a single digit. But what about if you're given hundreds of digits, or 50 or 60? It's all possible, right? And again, it might be another needle in a haystack where it's just busy work. One of these 50 contains your coordinates. So you might want to see if some of them are by the CO, some of them may not be by the CO. So there might be ways to reduce it. It could also be that they gave you 100, but only 15 are important. So you might want to see, is there a way maybe to see to shrink them down? Maybe 15 are by the CO and the other ones are by other people. 15 are mystery caches, the other ones are not. 15 the CO has found, the other ones are in another country. There's all kinds of ways of how they can limit, and so it could be any of the previous techniques, just with more noise around it. But it could be that there is just simply enough to either spell out a coordinate. So if there's like 100, you can easily spell out coordinates and you have to take one letter from each cache. It could be that they write on the map. I talk about in the map one, I talk about how you can use coordinates to actually write on like a map and write out the letters, right? The N, you basically go and you write all the legs of the N. So there's a variety of ways that you can use GC codes as well, because at the end they just turn to coordinates. Any trick that you can do with coordinates now apply to this solution as well. So these are just some of the things when you see a lot of them. Now there's one more scenario that I want to describe, because I probably solved probably a few dozen of these over time, where there is enough of them out there to do something with a DT grid. So you have the Fizzy grid, where basically all the combinations of the terrain and difficulty are a cell, right? So you get like a matrix like this. Well, if there are 14 or more, and they all have a lot of different DT combinations, so you have more or less every DT that you find turns out to be unique, then it might be that you have to plot them on a DT grid. So here is an example of, let's say you got 14 GC codes, 7 of them were traditional, 7 of them were non-traditional, multis, mysteries, etc. Again, safest to use with their own caches, because anybody could change the DT based on feedback, but maybe if they're archived, it's safer, right? It's unlikely that somebody changed the DT for an archived cache. And so now you would plot them out. So in this case, the purple ones are the latitude, the longitude are the red ones, and this is the coordinate that is plotted here. Because if I look, then I see 3, see, it's the third one, but this cache had a difficulty of 1.5 by 2. But if I just take the 2 into account, then I end up being at location 3. So it gives me a 3. The next one is 4, because it was a 2.5, 2. But for me, that would place it at location 4 on the third row. And so on. So the 2.5, 1.5 ended up here. And that in this case was a traditional, so it ended up right here. So we get 3, 4, 2, 2, nothing. So it's the dot, 7, 5, 3. And then the longitude is all the non-traditionals. And again, they were just plotted on the map where they were with the purple pinkish color. And so now we start with 0. Nothing is filled in, right? So that's a 0. And then an 8, because this is the 8. The 4, the 1, the 4, 0, nothing, or a dot, right? And then 8, 2, 5. So with 14 caches and the Fizzy grid, and by all having them different DTs, we could actually plot them out. So there's different variations of do that. I've seen it actually spell out. So for example, it literally had like a 5 like this, and then an I, and then you could make an X right here, and now you have like a 6. And if you put enough caches on the map, you could spell a lot of things on the DT grid, right? By using different GC codes or different cache types or different COs or some way to group them together, and just each group will spell out a number. And you can have hundreds of GC codes and you just have to plot them over and over again on the map, and therefore get a solution at the end. So these are just some of the tricks that can be used with GC codes. So I hope you enjoyed this video and gives you some ideas when you see a GC code of what to try and what to look for, and depending on how many you find, maybe use different strategies of how it could lead to a coordinate. If you enjoyed the video, please like it, Also subscribe, that way you get notified when I publish new ones. Still have quite a few ideas that I would like to talk about. So feel free to leave a comment, whether you either see something that maybe I could have talked about as well, or you can contact me as waterfan5 on the geocaching.com website, or you can email me as well using Gmail and give me your feedback, your ideas, whatever you want to communicate about. I'm happy to discuss that with you. Thank you very much and hope you enjoyed this video.